So what do we have going on? We got an ignition upgrade basically, because every time I drive the car the ignition fails. That's an exaggeration, it's not every time. Yeah, it's fun. But every year that I've owned this car, literally every summer I've been driving it, I've had an ignition failure. And I'm just not happy with that. It's a distributor goes out, whether that's, you know, a Ford TFI or a Holley Dual Sync. I've had what I think are 2 Holley Dual Syncs go. Had at least one MSD box go, maybe a second one, I'm not sure.
Crank trigger, I'm actually using a Pro M crank trigger. And this is one of the big reasons that I like the Pro M one. This reluctor wheel is pretty thin here, and the dimensions work out pretty nicely. So this is a 36-1 wheel. You can see it's just missing a tooth there. Pretty nice setup, kind of a thick target here with a thin inside. And that is what it allows you to do. The balancer that I have uses a crankshaft spacer. There's already one on the car, but they use a crankshaft spacer, and they sell these spacers in different thicknesses, which should be convenient, although it might bite me in the butt anyway. You can take the spacer that's on there. My car currently uses, like most Fox bodies, the 0.950 wide spacer. You can have that machined down so that this reluctor wheel fits over it and doesn't push your pulleys out at all. This is the Pro M sensor mount for the crank trigger setup. Now Pro M uses what is basically a factory Ford reluctor sensor here, and you can use this with the Holley. I have that adapter made up, but instead what I'm going to do is convert this to a Hall effect sensor. So this is a neat little mount. It does have all the adjustment you need. It's built very nicely. It bolts to your oil pan here, and I think the timing chain cover here on the passenger side. So that will actually sit, if you look kind of straight down on it, kind of like this, but it'll align with the wheel here, the reluctor wheel. Which actually reminds me, I'm glad this thing is here. Most of those wire harnesses that I have, the injector wire harnesses, the injector power wire harness, and the connection to the ECU for the injectors, all came from Jolt Systems. And let me tell you, I called them, I think last week Wednesday, and said, hey, I need these, you know, how long will it take to get them? And he said, man, I'll get you those things out tomorrow. And sure enough, he did. Shout out to Pro M as well, because I like this setup. I like that it's on the driver's side where I have actually a little more room and I can get to it a little easier. It changes the setup and the steps you go, but it'll work just fine. And I did the same with them. I called them. They said, yep, we'll have that thing out pretty much the day I ordered it. Shipped it with the cable that I needed and ready to go. So both those companies did great by me. All right, all on them. This is actually a box from the plug for the cam sync, and that's the part number that I used. Plugs right into the factory Ford Explorer cam sync and allows you to wire it right into the Holley harness. This is actually the cam sync right here. Apologize, should have had this stuff laid out for you. Anyway, this is the cam sync. You can see the sensor goes straight into here. It's basically the bottom half of a distributor that drops into your block. You plug your cam sync in here and you're ready to go. And I've actually made up this little adapter right here because the Hall effect sensor that you would use for a typical Holley has a specific MetroPack 3 plug on it here. But I'm going to use the Ford Explorer cam sync, so this is the plug that you need for that. There's a bunch of posts online that tell you where to find this stuff, so I just bought the plug along with the cam sync, made myself a little adapter, and right into the harness here. So that will again run kind of under the manifold and right into the cam sync from the Explorer. So these are some of the other parts that you need listed. Now, I showed you the Explorer cam synchronizer that I used, but I'm showing you here, if you go to Rock Auto, look for like a 1997 Explorer version, and you can see you've got your choice. Some of these are more expensive than others. Take your pick, whichever one you like. Make sure it's the like 96, 97, 98 version with a 3-wire Hall effect sensor in it. The later ones like the 98, 99s, I forget the cutoff year, but they have a 2-wire sensor in them. You definitely want the 3-wire. The plug that I used is also this plug, the PTA 1417. I think I got it locally, but Rock Auto has it as well. And I just used this plug to plug into the cam sync, and then I put a new connector on it to make an adapter to plug straight into the Holley adapter harness, so that I didn't have to change the plugs on that, just in case at some point down the road that I have to plug in an MSD one or something else. I wanted to plug on it that Holley normally has, so that it had easy compatibility. This is actually the crank sensor that I used on it. Again, the Pro M unit comes with a magnetic one. I wanted to switch it to a Hall effect sensor. If you go to Holley's website, you'll find out that they want like $190 for a crank sensor to fit this kit, right? But this sensor works just fine, and they're $36 plus shipping. You'll have about $45 into this thing shipped to your house. And to mount it to the Pro M crank trigger, and I'm sure that you could use it for others, I just grabbed this mounting bracket. It's actually a mounting bracket meant for like other kind of controls and things for any generic M12 sensor, really, which that's what this is. This is an M12 sized sensor. It just happens to be a Hall effect sensor. So for another $8, I grabbed this thing, and yes, you're right, it's like $1 that is what it should cost, but for $8 I grabbed that, and for $60 I had a mount and a sensor that plugs into the Holley. You also, one of the things that is kind of overlooked here is you need to, well, let me show the harnesses, and I'll jump back to this power tap harness. The harnesses I used came from Jolt Systems for the most part. They have several different Smart Coil harnesses. There's this harness, you can see it plugs into the Smart Coils here, and then has pigtails on it to plug into the Holley system. But it needs to plug in to another harness here. This harness is what those plug into, and then these flying leads are pulled back to the ECU and get pinned into, I believe it's the J1B harness. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple to do that. And then this is the Holley ignition crank cam harness that you need. It plugs into that 937F harness, and where normally your TFI adapter would plug in, this plugs in instead, and it has leads here for both the cam and crank signals. Now the last one is a power tap. You don't absolutely need this. You could wire it in other ways, but it's very easy and probably a great idea to use the power tap that's on the Holley harness to power the coils. So I use this what is this, coil harness, and I actually got it with, you can order it with or without a power harness. You're going to need a power harness, so you might as well order it from them as well. It's a very nice harness, and it comes with a plug that
plugs straight into the power tap. Now, the reason I'm showing you this pigtail is because it's just a normal pigtail. In fact, I built my own. I built an extension to plug into the Holley harness and just used some 4-strand wire and ran it out so that I can plug it in near the relay, because what that allows you to do is anytime the fuel pump is on in the car, it will turn on the injectors as well. So that way the ECU is controlling when the injectors are on, because you don't want to just leave the injectors on all the time. You only want them on when the car is cranking or running. So that's what I did. So that's all of the parts that I used, kind of miscellaneous, that I wasn't able to necessarily show you in the video or in the walkthrough in the garage, right? So there you go. All right, you'll also need to make some updates in the Holley system. So this is my global file that I'm using for that car. In the ignition type, you know, you go to this system parameters and then go down to ignition parameters. Now the 937F used on these small block 5-liter cars, they come, you know, pre-set up for this Ford TFI, right? I was using the Holley Dual Sync. It's a pretty simple swap. You just click that button and it works. But to go to the crank trigger, you have to click custom down here at the bottom, and then it brings up this configure button. When you go into configure, it gives you a few more drop downs. I'm using a 36-1 crank trigger, so I just selected that. I actually have it set on digital falling because that was the recommendation I see all over online, and set it up there. You'll notice this actually changed when I reset it, but it's easy enough. When you set this up, your target, based on everything I've read on there, is you want to set this up on the 7th tooth, okay? And you can see this changes on the side here, this diagram, so that the crank sensor lines up with basically tooth number 7. Now I will say this is handy to a certain extent, in that if you pick 7, you want to be on the 7th tooth based on this engine rotation, right? So it would go past this gap, and then this would be the first tooth, second tooth, so on to 7, right? You want to be aligned pretty close to that 7th tooth, but you can largely ignore this timing pointer. Doesn't really matter if it's over here or over here. You know, the 5-liter guys out there, you're going to understand that from the factory that timing pointer is on this side, and it doesn't really matter where it's at as long as you line up. So you place your engine at top dead center, right? Top dead center on the compression stroke, and then you align this sensor 7 teeth back from the gap. That's all you really need to worry about, and it will be set up just fine. Don't worry about where the pointer is at as long as you're at top dead center when you do it. That's my dog over there. Hey, lay down. B. Lay down. Come on, stop that. Good girl. Okay, sorry about that. So as long as you're, 7 teeth from this gap, you're going to be just fine. Now, this timing offset is used to fine tune the timing, because you're going to be close based on this, but after you get this car started, you'll have to set the fixed timing and check the timing with the timing light, right? And you don't actually need to move the sensor to adjust the timing. You can just move the timing offset. Now, 36 teeth means each tooth is about 10 degrees. So if you're more than about 5 degrees off, you could move the sensor to a different one. I was pretty close. I'm 2 degrees off when I set mine, so pretty solid. Now, the cam sensor with the Explorer sensor, you just set it to single pulse and digital falling. There's also plenty of places online. I would show them to you, but frankly, just Google the Explorer wiring, and it's pretty easy to find, and then line it up with the Holley pin out. It's basically just a positive, a negative, and a signal wire, so pretty straightforward. And then you have to change this output setup. Make sure it's on DIS coil on plug. There are a bunch of other settings in here. DIS coil on plug active low is not what you want. DIS waste fire, that's not what you want. You don't want anything else. You want DIS coil on plug. And I know this is a coil near plug setup, but it operates the same. Now for me, I'm using Smart Coils, so I set the dwell at 4 milliseconds. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can use different coils. You can use LS coils and a bunch of other stuff, and you might need to change that dwell time, but for the typical Smart Coil, 4 milliseconds should work fine. That is all of the setup changes that you need to make.
All right, so the garage is a terrible mess. I'm not even going to pan away from the car. I have just finished swapping this car from a distributor setup to a coil near plug setup. Nobody makes a complete drop-in kit for these cars. I wish they did. So how do you get coil near plug? Well, the two main things that you need are a cam sync and a crank signal. So you have to get those on there. And then obviously you have to get the coils on there, which I've got my coils mounted in the corners here. There's one there, one set there, I guess, and one set there. You're free to mount them wherever you want, but that was the convenient spot in my engine bay, so that's what I used. Then the last thing is you need power to the coils. I didn't use the Holley kits for these. I used Jolt Systems, and you could actually see on this side, this is actually the power harness for the coils, and it is actually wired directly into the battery and then ground to the back of the heads. And there's actually a relay in this back corner here that turns on when the injectors are on, when the fuel pump circuit is hot. So when the car is running or trying to run, those are on. Anyway, that's what I have for this car now. Hopefully I'll do a better video on this and show you some of what it took. I, again, apologize. I hate videoing while I'm working on the car. It's tough around here. It's not what I do. But those are the updates. If you do have questions about going coil near plug, why I made certain choices, how some of this stuff works, let me know. It is definitely a learning curve to get this stuff set up. But once it is, look, I fired it up, warmed it up, checked the timing, made sure everything is good there, and then I pretty much immediately took it for a test ride, and all is well. So coil on plug, way to go.